Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. We stand on the biblical truth that all human beings, including the unborn, are created in the image of God and are endowed by Him with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today is Wednesday, June the 5th, 2024. Tim Wildman here with Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
I'm here.
That's it?
That's it.
You showed up?
Showed up. I'm here.
90% of life is just showing
Yes.
up. Wesley
That's what I
says,
heard.
I'm here. I'm here. What do you want? Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
So all of us are in studio today here in Tupelo, MS. We thank you for joining us. Steve Paisley, Jordahl will be along the next hour.
It just seems official when we're
Yeah.
all in studio together. I understand that can't be the case for some of our co-hosts and others, and we have guests on occasionally, but everyone's here in studio.
Eyeballing.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
Holding each other
and
accountable.
you got a quarter of a brain there.
That's right.
Quarter here.
Quarter
with Ed and a quarter with you. We got.
That's right.
Hey, Brent's in the room. We got a brain and a quarter
So we're
in this room.
we're overdoing it.
Yeah. So what we lack in individual talent, we make up in groupthink here.
and become totally mediocre.
After
So
all,
we rise to the level of mediocrity.
after all that, we do that.
Okay, Fred, what's the first story you got there for us?
Well, the nation can breathe a sigh of relief this morning. A sigh of relief. Because President Joe Biden, he now says he's taking steps to secure the southern border.
Uh-huh.
And
I thought it was already secure, according to
six,
Alejandro Mayorkas.
6 months ago,
Well, he
Mayorkas
didn't say it
told
was
us-
secure. He said there's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Well, he has answered that it's secure.
Yeah.
And no problem, nothing to see here.
Right.
Yes.
Now, all of a sudden, Biden's going to solve the problem that he said didn't exist.
Didn't exist.
Yeah, big announcement yesterday from the White House. And I say a big announcement because they've been talking about this for days.
Yes.
And so finally, he goes to a podium yesterday at the White House, and he says, because those Republicans wouldn't pass that legislation, that bipartisan legislation, I have to do something about what's going on at the border. Now, here's what he had to say, and we've kind of alluded to this the last couple of shows. He says the encounters at the border cannot exceed 2,500 a day. But a lot of people
Total along the American-Mexican border, huh?
2,500 a day is
All right.
what they say. However, this is where reading the small print really becomes
Yes, sir.
important because there's a list as long as your arm of
Yes.
exemptions to this.
Correct.
So besides the 2,500 that they're going to allow in every day, the exemptions include non-citizens determined to be victims of severe forms of trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
individuals arriving at ports of entry with a CBP-1 appointment. Basically, these poor folks who all seem to have cell phones can dial up Homeland Security and make an appointment, all right? And any migrant that a Customs Border Protection officer allows in based on, listen to this quotation, the totality of circumstances or due to operational considerations. Now, if that doesn't sound like bureaucrat official
Mumbo jumbo.
mumbo jumbo,
Say that again.
Mumbo
I'm
jumbo.
trying to under.
No, not mumbo jumbo.
What are
Yes.
you talking
We don't
about?
need that again.
that sounds like something Biden would say, but
the definition of one of the exemptions there, that one you
yes,
just read?
officer allows, it's based on the, quote, the totality of the circumstances or due to operational considerations, end quote.
That's a big bunch of nothing.
Yes.
That's exactly.
All right. Additional.
That means everybody gets in.
You know, he's going to keep going here, but they actually do that, 4 or 5 times, and they just swap words around.
Yes.
But he's about to do this again.
Like
All right.
Mexican restaurant menu.
Yes. It's still rice, chicken, and tortillas.
Right.
No matter how you
They
change
just switch the names around.
That's it.
Throw in a pepper
Sometimes
every
it's-
once in a while.
Some onions.
some
sometimes,
onions.
Sometimes it's fried.
Right. But
Sometimes it's deep fried.
But
Sometimes
the,
it's
the
toasted.
250 things they have listed. It's all the same thing, just mixed in
That's
different ways.
good.
But
Good point.
anyway,
Additional exemptions. We're not through yet with the small print. Apply to those with, quote, an acute medical emergency. Mr. Border Agent, I think I'm going to have appendicitis.
Yes.
And those who face, quote, an imminent and extreme threat to life or safety. All right. The memo then lists ways a non-citizen can express a fear of return to their home country, which includes nonverbal indicators.
Oh, my
This is crazy. Simple statements such as, I'm afraid to go to
Yes, that's it.
my country.
I've heard enough, Fred.
No,
But
one
go-
more.
Okay, continue on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Or I'm afraid of the government or governing group are listed as examples of non-citizen manifesting fear. In other words, they can still show up at the border and say, I'm coming from a country that I fear my government. You're in.
You're an exception.
I'm going to give you, Tim. Now, folks can't see this, but I'm going to give you a nonverbal communication. Okay.
Stop.
I'm
please.
giving the sad puppy look.
Right.
It was the
How about
good-
if they blink 4 times quick? That means let me in.
That's Morse code there.
Listen, and then you let you comment. Okay, folks, we're kidding around here, but this is a serious issue, number one issue for a lot of American voters.
Well, he seriously did that too. That was yesterday.
Yes.
Yes.
What you have, and I think everybody sees this for what it is.
Sure.
Biden has been a colossal failure on defending our border, protecting our country. Colossal failure. And I think truth is not in his mind. He's done a wonderful job because he's let millions and millions and millions of people in.
Yes.
It's just obviously intentional on the part of Biden and the Democrats. When he said, when I'm elected, I'm going to invite a surge.
That's what he promised.
That's verbatim.
Yep.
That's a quote.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he did. It's hurt him. It's hurt him and the Democrats in the polls, and they're worried, sick that it's going to hurt them in November, both in the congressional and senatorial races, as well as Biden v. Trump. This issue is going to stay in the forefront of people's minds. So, what do they do? What does Biden do? They create this executive order, which ostensibly is supposed to slow down greatly illegal immigration into our country or people coming here just walking across the border. So they've said, well, we're going to limit it to 2,500, right?
A day.
A day, which, as Wesley and I were talking this morning, that's like saying, we're going to set the speed limit at 70, but as long as you don't go over 89, we're probably not going to ticket you.
Yep.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's saying. So that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That you say 2,500. It's like people showing up, where you're gonna have turnstiles with numbers.
Right.
We're gonna be okay.
We hit the daily limit.
We hit the daily limit.
You have to wait.
But you also got to include the list. So then
There
is.
That's if you had the 2,500, and what you're saying is he's also, but these list of exemptions that Fred just listed off, which the wording of those just says any and everybody can come for whatever reason they want.
It's
They
a
just make it
sieve.
up.
It's a sieve.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
There can be all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
slipping
So this is a fraud. This is they're trying to hoodwink, I guess, independent voters who might not had their minds made up on this issue or not, to say, hey, we're doing something. We're about it. Anyway,
Let me just toss one additional
Yeah.
thing in, okay? Just to show you how corrupt the left is when it comes to issues like this. Now, I'm sure we have some listeners who will say, look, are you guys making fun of someone at the border who has acute appendicitis? You're saying they can't be let in. You just want them to die of an acute medical condition? All right, here's my answer. The reason there are people with acute medical conditions on our border is because President Biden, when he was a candidate, said, y'all come.
Yes.
Right.
That's why they're on the border.
And
now,
we'll pay for your health
and we'll pay for
care.
California's paying for
Yeah.
their health care. In New York City, I think it's something crazy like 25 or 30% of all the hotels in the city are given over to homeless and illegal immigrants. All right. So the problem isn't if there was someone on our border who was having a heart attack and they were trying to get in, I would say absolutely. We're not callous. Okay. Absolutely take them to a hospital and give them treatment. But the reason they're there, the reason they're not in Ecuador, and the reason they're not in Honduras, all right, is because President Biden said, everybody come. We'll take care of you.
Right.
And
He
that's the issue.
incentivized them to come.
So what the Democrats do is they say, look at those heartless conservatives. They want people to die on our border who have these conditions.
And that's just,
No, we want them to stay in their country.
Right.
And a certain percentage we let in legally every year.
Anyway, that was an executive order that Biden did yesterday. It's all window dressing, trying to.
The one thing I'll add to this is another way of the Democrats changing the definition of what's illegal. Because if you think about this, a couple months back, here's an illustration to kind of parallel. Ben Crump, a civil rights attorney who's identical to Al Sharpton as it relates to race baiting, he said how we can get rid of crime, we can lower it tomorrow, we can just about do away with it. And here's a strategy: we're going to change the definition of what a crime is.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not going to be a crime. This is not going to be a crime. Well, he's saying right here, we're going to change the because we already have a legal process.
Right.
So instead of spending government money and government time helping funnel in and coordinate and even expand or make more efficient the legal process, he could spend his energy making the process of legal immigration more efficient, making it better. All those things. That's where his energy could. We want immigration. Here's how we're going to do it. Instead of doing it that way, he's doing it illegally and just lowering the number or trying to present a lower number.
He's changing the definition of what's illegal.
Yeah, because they're still not coming in. You still have the legal process going on while he's inviting 2,500 in this executive order. So you're just changing the definition of what illegal immigration is.
All right, next story, Fred.
Well, I'd like to play you a little bit of reaction to all of this. First to my favorite senator, Louisiana Senator.
Yeah, we've got to go. If it's
John Kennedy.
If it's John Kennedy, we have to play the clip.
Yeah, here's his response to the Biden announcement, cut 4.
There can be an unlimited number of people coming into our country illegally so long as they come through a port of entry. And it'll take the cartels a skinny minute to figure that out, that loophole out.
Yeah, and that's what he's talking about because part of the exemptions is unaccompanied minors.
Yes.
So these cartels can just, and we've seen video of this, literally throw these kids over the border wall.
Well, and these kids are being trafficked.
Yes.
And that's one of the exemptions.
Yes. This is horrible.
So these cartels are getting paid. Who knows how much they're getting paid for each kid?
Yes.
Each unaccompanied minor that they take up there, they're getting paid a bunch of money.
Yep.
The cartels are getting strengthened. And because these kids are unaccompanied minors and they're being trafficked, they get in.
Well, we handled this in a lot more clarity than President Joe Biden did when he announced this because he had a hard time getting through it without stuttering and stumbling.
Yeah.
It was pretty embarrassing on another level.
Yeah, and one other related story, I mentioned this in our story meeting this morning, guys. In California, the Democrats are about to make law that makes it easier for illegal immigrants to get taxpayer funds. Are you ready for this? This piece of legislation that they're proposing will direct the University of California system to begin hiring illegal immigrants for taxpayer-funded state jobs. So if an illegal,
That's in California, right?
this is in California.
Right. Are they still part of the country? Or do you know? Does anybody know?
California?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Listen, we talked about this in the story meeting. This is essentially giving preferences to government jobs
It is.
to illegals, because if you have 3 openings
Mhm.
and you have California citizens wanting those jobs, but then California has said preference should be given to illegals for jobs, you're going to be giving the jobs to illegal immigrants rather than American citizens.
Yeah. We have one more reaction. This is Congresswoman Monica De La Cruz. She's a Republican from Texas. As you can tell by the name, an Hispanic lady. As she knows, and she says her constituents know, the border deal is nothing more than an election year scheme. Cut 3.
What it does is it shows that Joe Biden is losing at the polls. And most importantly, he's losing the Hispanics all around the state of Texas, especially in the border counties like mine. This is why Joe Biden finally, after 3 years of allowing chaos into our country, has decided to do the bare minimum.
Yeah. So if this is a bid to appease Hispanics, which polls have shown are moving away from the Democratic Party, it's not working, because Hispanics, people who have come into this country legally or are second, third, fourth generation, they are just as upset as other Americans about what's going on at the border.
Well, I mentioned earlier about the hotel rooms in New York City. So quick search, and I found this. A staggering 121 New York City hotels. This is the New York Post. A staggering 121 New York City hotels have been taken off the market and converted into migrant shelters, raising concerns that a space crunch and pricier rooms will tank tourism. Some 16,000 former hotel rooms now booked to help with the influx of migrants into the Big Apple, as the room rate for actual hotels, where the rest of the people can stay, has soared past $300 a night. Now, I had mentioned 20%.
Yeah.
I think it's this article says 15% of all hotel rooms in New York City now set aside for immigration, because illegal immigrants are headed towards the Big Apple.
Well, that really only makes sense because supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
So if the hotels in New York City are full, a lot of them are full because of illegal immigrants that have flooded the city, and they put them up, and New York pays for it. I guess the city and the state.
Yeah.
Does the city and state, or is the government? Or
Well, it's a city or
federal?
state government. Probably the
I
city
meant, when
government.
I say government, I meant
Yeah.
federal government.
No,
They probably, when the Biden administration says we need to help with these immigrants, I'm guessing New York City at some point is going to ask the federal government, say, listen,
Well, he has been, Adams, mayor.
we got to
But-
have help.
But the point is that so you got then that reduces the number of hotel rooms that are available to the public. And New York City's a big place for international commerce and business, right? So
Right.
and people visiting their families from around the world. So that squeezes. That makes the room numbers go down that are available because
Right.
of so then the prices go up.
And let me tell you something else. If these people who,
Then you end up with $350 for a day's in.
yeah,
Go
if
ahead.
these people trash these hotels, okay, I guarantee you the city's paying for that. These hotels are, I'm sure these hotels are saying to New York City, you want to tell us we have to? You're paying not only the rates we set, but any damage done, you pay for it.
Sounds like common ground. Again, we should have a whole show with common ground with the liberals, because that's kind of what we've said from the very beginning, right? Think about
What's
it.
that?
That's that if you're going to make Texas do this, if you're going to say y'all should host, or y'all bring them on in, why stop the border? Then okay, we'll send them to you.
Yeah.
And now that the liberal states have them,
Listen,
they're
yes,
they're saying,
right.
well, we need help. Why don't y'all come do it?
Oh, the Mayor Adam, the big city, they're saying we need money from the
Yes.
federal government to do this, to house these people.
Because it's the federal government's policy that's letting them all in.
We both agree it's a problem.
Yeah, you get what you incentivize.
That's right.
And Biden and the Democrats have incentivized illegal immigration from around the world and that's what we're getting. And this attempt to say we're doing something, Biden yesterday, and the Democrats, they're not doing anything. They're just it's like I said, when you list all those exemptions, it negates the whole point of the whole executive order. Anyway, let's move on. Next story.
Well, yesterday, Attorney General Merrick Garland appeared before the House Judiciary Committee. The chair of that committee is Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. And high on the list is a demand that the Attorney General turn over the audio tape of the interview that Special Counsel Robert Hur did with President Joe Biden in the midst of his investigation of the classified documents, which were found in several different places, including Biden's home garage. So here's Congressman Jim Jordan, cut 6.
The White House and the Justice Department say we're impartial, we're independent, it's not based on politics. Oh, really? Then give us the best evidence. And the best evidence is the audio tape so we can evaluate this in the context of Congress's duty in an impeachment inquiry to get all the evidence and evaluate that evidence.
Yeah, Garland says, no, we're not going to do that. They handed over a transcript, but Jordan wants the audio of that interview because, remember, Special Counsel Hur's final report, he said, yes, there were classified documents all over the place. However, Special Counsel Hur concluded that because, and I'm paraphrasing here, that at points in the interview that he did with Biden, that the president sounded like a little old man, was confused, couldn't remember certain important dates, that a jury would feel so sorry for him they would find him not guilty. So
outrageous.
Yes, Congressman Jordan is saying we want to hear the audio for ourselves, because there may be other things. But Attorney General Merrick Garland is saying no way. And here's the excuse that Garland gave yesterday in this hearing. Well, if we do that, then other people who come forward with evidence of a crime might be intimidated not to talk to us if they knew the audio of the interview was going to be made public. That's how Garland defended not turning over the audio.
Well, in this situation, though, that I don't buy that, because this is the President of the United States. Also, he is a candidate for office in November.
Yes.
And, okay, again, the truth is, how many times we have to say this? The truth is that Merrick Garland is covering for Joe Biden, the president, in releasing these tapes because they must sound really terrible for Biden, make him look bad, worse than he does. That's on a legal standpoint. However, let me just say this. I think this has already been factored in, this mental decline on the part of Joe Biden, his obvious, what do you call it? Cognitive decline has been on display for the whole world to see. I think people are factoring that in already. So I don't think the release of those tapes matter in that regard. The public already considering this as we look to November.
I don't think so, and here's why.
I'm your dad, son. You don't publicly disagree with me. You call me aside during the break. I'm about to. Okay, but you go ahead. Be your own man.
Real quickly, why I do think that matters. We live in 2024, and people have a very a lot of people forget what happened the day before. I think
Biden.
I think if you keep it in front of them, I do think there is a reason, if you're a conservative, you're a Republican, that you want that to be released.
Yeah, I think it's a public record. I mean, this is a big deal. I agree it should be released. I'm just saying I think people have already factored into their minds.
But it also points out the double standard compared with Donald Trump.
Yes.
Because if Biden does it and they excuse and make these excuses for why he did it, but then they hang this around Trump and Mar-a-Lago, the records.
I was talking about the cognitive decline part of it. But we'll try to figure all this out when we get back from the break.
Put our quarter brains together.
It's my turn. Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
The Spirit immediately drove him out into the wilderness, and he was in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan. And he was with the wild beast, and the angels ministered to him. The wilderness spoken of in the temptation experience of Jesus is unlike the conception most Americans have of a wilderness. When the word wilderness is spoken, we usually associate it with a region of tremendous undergrowth and trees. The wilderness which Jesus faced was one of rolling hills, nearly barren of any growth. Tradition places the area where Jesus spent his 40 days in the wilderness as being between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea. It's an almost treeless area of scant vegetation, except during the rainy season when grass grows. The area is some 15 miles wide and 35 miles long. A visitor to the Holy Land today can see to the north of Jericho the traditional Mount of Temptation. Supposedly, this is the mountain spoken of in the wilderness experience. The temptation of Jesus followed immediately on the heels of his baptism. We are told that he was led by the Holy Spirit into the desert. Christ had made a public confession of his faith in God. Now that faith was to be tested. Christ needed to know before he set out on the journey if he had the requirements to finish the journey. He was to later remind his followers, no man sets out to build a building unless he first counts the cost to see if he will be able to finish it. It was lonely in the wilderness. Jesus went in alone. He knew that the time would come when he would have to make important decisions alone. He had to prepare himself for that time. We are told that for 40 days he fought the struggle with his tempter. He had no other to help him in his struggle there in that wilderness except for the presence of God. During these days, Jesus went without food. It was while he was extremely hungry that he was tempted to use his power to turn stones into bread. But Christ refused. It was the beginning of a pattern to be used throughout the whole of his public ministry. He would never use his power in a selfish manner. This pattern reached its pinnacle at the cross when he refused to excuse himself from the suffering and dying. It was in the wilderness that Jesus fought his greatest battle. It was here that he first set his face toward Jerusalem. It was here, alone and hungry, that Jesus conquered his supreme test. He did not break. He did not bend. He had been called to a high and holy task. He met and defeated his tempter. Now he was prepared to go back into the world. There is a wilderness experience for each of us. There is a time when, faced with which road of life to follow, we fight the struggle within the depths of our very own heart. Other battles will follow, but the major battle of our life is out in the wilderness when we are alone and hungry. The temptations we face, like those of Christ, are always extremely attractive. The wilderness is a very ugly and desolate place, and the temptations are extremely tempting. Few win out over the temptations of the wilderness, but those who do can walk toward Jerusalem and a waiting cross. For their life belongs to God, and it is his power which sustains them.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
The Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there are any who understand God, any who seek God. Psalm 14, verse 2.
American Family Radio.
This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
One thing I've learned in life, popcorn goes down the wrong way, you know it immediately.
That is true.
Huh?
Worse,
and yet you keep doing it.
and worse than water or any type of liquid.
Yeah.
Sweet tea or anything.
I think that goes for the human race, and yet you keep doing it.
Yes, that's true. Which you learned when you and Allison were going through the Old Testament last year and reading all through the kings. It just good king, bad king, bad king, bad king, good king, bad, bad.
Also,
why do you keep doing this?
Yeah, and also you keep going to the children of Israel. You're going. You just want to step through the pages of the Bible and go, "What is wrong with you people?
Yes.
Huh?
You keep doing
another
this.
high place?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Have we not seen what's happened here?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
And
you want to,
yeah.
And then the Lord says, "Yeah, let's
look
talk
at
about
you.
Let's talk about you doing the same thing over and over."
You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Wesley, Ed, and Fred. We're joined now by Dr. Walter Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University. Dr. Wendler joined us a couple months ago, and we decided to have him back on to talk about a different topic. Dr. Wendler, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Tim, and gentlemen, if I may use that term.
You are
good
using
to
that
be with
used
you.
loosely. Yes, you are. Believe me, I'm in the room with these guys. So you were on with us. When were you our guest?
About a month ago?
About a month ago.
And yet you hadn't been fired.
No, I haven't. I'm still here.
I just figured somebody'd get on your case about being on with Wildman and that
Wildman and
that bunch.
Wildman and Company. And anyway, Dr. Wendler, how long have you been there at West Texas A&M University? And you guys are again in the Amarillo area, right?
That's exactly right. Just a little south of Amarillo in a town called Canyon, Texas. It's right on the rim of the Paladuro Canyon. I've been 8 years now at West Texas A&M.
Before I ask you about an issue, what's the focus of your job, your mission there? What do you want? What do you get up every day wanting to accomplish?
Well, we want to serve. The first thing we want to do is serve the people of West Texas and serve locally first. A lot of times when you hear university leaders talk, they talk about a national or an international kind of agenda. I am focused on a local agenda. I want to understand the values and the commitments and the intents of the people of West Texas, the top 26 counties of Texas, which is the Panhandle proper. It's that little box at the top of Texas. I want to serve those folks first because I believe that, especially in public education, it's like, and I don't often quote Tip O'Neill, but, he said all politics were local. And I think all education is local also. So first thing we want to do is serve people here first. And the people here are very special. They have a different view of the world than many, many folks. And what I want to do every day when I get out of bed in the morning, when my feet hit the floor, I want to serve the folks in the Texas Panhandle with a very fine and distinctive regional university here.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you what's been happening. You, higher education, you're obviously president of a university. We've seen what's happened, although it's faded somewhat, but we've seen what happened in the last couple of months with some of these demonstrations by students across the country that have been against Israel, anti-Semitic, very anti-Semitic. Pro-Hamas, anti-American. They call it colonialism. They call it, white supremacy. On and on the list goes. It's the same folks from Antifa and meaning the BLM and Occupy Wall Street. These far left groups, but these students protesting, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and also is there any role in higher education in communicating history and patriotism?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, Tim. There is a role in communicating true history and real patriotism as part of our job. One of the problems in higher education is, in an effort to serve everybody, many universities have lost any moral compass at all. And I'm not ashamed to say, I say to people, look, I'm a Christian man. I believe Jesus Christ came to save my soul and everyone else that wants him. And to hear that at a public university is a fairly radical perspective. But I think it's important because it's a moral compass. And I don't tell everybody they have to follow my moral compass, but I want them to know, almost as a matter of being honest and transparent, this is what I believe. And if my actions and my leadership at the institution doesn't line up with a biblical perspective, somebody needs to say to me, hey, you're not walking the walk here, and you need to. But that doesn't mean that everybody here believes the same way that I do. I mean, we have to be open to new ideas and different ideas and so on and so forth. But the place I start is having a moral compass that is founded on what I consider to be the founding values of the nation. And I think values that are still resident in the Texas Panhandle. It's a very, I'll use the word conservative. It's not a perfect word to describe the folks here, but it's a very conservative, practically minded, feet flat on the floor view of the world that says it's still a handshake culture up here, Tim. We have a handshake culture up here. I do things all the time on a handshake. And I'm very comfortable with that. And I like it because I think it's American, to be honest with you. And I think there is a role for universities to promote that kind of behavior and that kind of leadership by example. And it bothers me to see, in terms of Hamas and Israel and the anti-Semitism embedded in that, it bothers me. But it's also not new. I can tell you 10 years ago at UCLA, there was a young woman there, Rachel Beta, who was in student government, and they wanted her to be on a committee of student government. And they initially disbanded her didn't allow her to be on this committee because she was a Jew. And she was afraid of her views of the Palestinian conflict. So this is it's actually much older than that. You were talking about kings. I mean, this goes back a long, long way. And the fact of the matter is, that's just wrong. And actually, in the end, the Daily Bruin, the UCLA newspaper, they got it right. They said, look, this is wrong. You can't keep her off this committee because she's a Jew. By the way, this is not much different than what William Buckley experienced at Yale, that he recorded for posterity in God and Man at Yale. Buckley was a Catholic at an institution that was largely Protestant, and William Sloane Coffin was the board was on the board and led the review committee of Buckley's transgressions. And basically, Coffin said that maybe Buckley should have attended a university that was welcoming to his kind. And he used the example of Fordham, which everyone knows is a Catholic university. That is, it just doesn't make sense in a public institution, and it doesn't make sense in a private institution. Yeah. I'm glad in Texas, our Governor Abbott, put out an executive order at the end of March of this year that basically disallowed these kinds of protests and encampments. And said that they were anti-Semitic and that was inappropriate at a public university. I mean, the fact of the matter is that business turns into a form of hate speech when you call for the annihilation of a race of people. And I think we need to be very careful in a public institution to condone or allow that, condone it by allowing it. And I just think we haven't done that here. We will not do it here. I would just say, no, we're not going to do it. I've said it before on certain issues. We will not disparage any group of people on this campus as a matter of policy. And allowing something like what's gone on with all this from the river to the sea business, which basically doesn't allow Israel a square inch of land.
From the river to
what
the
is
sea
now-
means kill all the Jews.
That's exactly what it means.
That's what it means,
That's
because they're
exactly
talking
what it
about
means.
from the River Jordan to the sea, Mediterranean Sea, get rid of them.
Right.
Or at least get rid of them as they exist in the land of Israel. Dr. Wendler, we got to go here, but tell the folks where they can read more about your school.
Yes, I'm glad to do it, Tim. We're at West Texas A&M University, WTAMU.edu, and there's a lot of things to read about West Texas A&M, and we are the most conservative public university in the state of Texas. There's a study on there that talks about why, and it's a very special place. And I would encourage people that are looking for a distinctive approach in higher education that they should look right here at a very efficient and high-quality educational experience.
Thank you, Dr. Wendler. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. That's Dr. Walter Wendler joining us from the Panhandle there in Texas. And that he is the president of West Texas A&M University.
So Christian conservative universities still exist. There's not.
Well, they're a
it's a
public.
public-
They're
university.
they're a
I'm
public
sorry.
school, but they are tolerant of Christian conservatives.
Yes. Yes.
That's stunning.
Yes.
That's
You believe it?
that's an exception.
That's what. Well, that's what he. That's a public school that's not discriminatory against people who are Christians, which is in ways we could talk about and have talked about.
And they are promoting conservative ideas
yes,
at the university.
Unashamedly so.
Yeah, I was looking at an article here from the Texas Tribune that quotes Dr. Wendler at an event in 2023, and he says, "I want West Texas A&M University to champion ideas rather than ideology," and I like that distinction. Ideology blinds you to the value or the potential truth of ideas that aren't a part of your ideology. To me, it seems like Christianity provides the best basis for examining America's history and saying, you know what, here are the things we did right, and yes, here are the things we did wrong, because you know what, America was made up of human beings, and the Bible says human beings do both good and bad. And to me, Christianity gives you the freedom to do that, but leftist ideology leftist ideology doesn't allow you to say America did many good things. It only allows you to say America did bad things.
And the irony, again, as we've said here before here, and I think this was original with me. I'm not trying to brag on myself.
No, absolutely not.
I wouldn't try to do that.
I'll correct you if you get it wrong.
Okay, well, you do that, son. You know I have a will, right? Okay. And there's three of you, right?
All kinds of things can happen, Wesley.
It could become two.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. The irony of the left wingers is that they are constantly putting down our country, the United States of America, as a system. Remember during the George Floyd riots and all that?
Systemically racist.
You're a systemically, we're supposed to be called a systemically racist nation, which means there's no hope for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay, and what do these lefties do? They say, hey, world, come to our systemically racist nation
Yes.
and enjoy all the free benefits that
Yeah.
we can give you. Come here illegally if you have to. Yeah. Huh? By the millions.
Yeah.
Why? Because you too can enjoy the systemically racist nation
Yes.
that we all enjoy here.
Ruled by white supremacists.
Right. Come to.
Yes.
You want to be ruled by white supremacists?
Yes.
Come to America.
Who elected at the time a 70-year-old white man as a president?
Right.
Are you talking
about the party? The party that says.
Are you talking about the Democrats?
Yeah, the Democrats.
You're talking about Biden.
He was
more like 80.
78. He's 81
at the time
now.
when they elected him.
He's moving on down the road. You're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Real quickly before we get to the next story, Fred, I wanted to say this. You know, with Trump, there's good Trump, bad Trump.
Yeah.
Is that right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Or is there only good Trump?
No,
I
champion ideas rather than ideology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes when you point out bad Trump,
every human being is a mixture. That's my belief, including myself.
Good Trump, bad Trump. I got to point out bad Trump today.
Okay.
he has decided to try to defeat Bob Good, in Virginia. Bob Good is a congressman from Virginia, but he is also the chairman of the Freedom Caucus in the United States House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. And I've talked to many. I don't know Congressman Good personally. I think we've interviewed him a time or two. But I know people who he's good friends with Sandy Rios, and I know Jenna Ellis, and other people who know him can vouch for his character and his credibility. And he is a staunch conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So he's one of us. Now his opponent, I don't know in the primary. I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's a fine man who's running against.
The guy who's running against it was a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and
Okay.
he's very.
Well, in my mind, that's all I need to know.
He's very conservative as well.
About his
disciplined character.
But really, his challenger,
the
gentleman's name I read about this morning, aside, let me just say this. Trump is going after Bob Good because Good endorsed Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, during the primary.
Correct.
So Trump is doing the Godfather thing here. He's trying to take out anybody who hurts his feelings.
Mm.
Okay, and so that's why I say it's bad Trump. That's wrong. Trump says Bob Good is, and he does it in caps, bad for Virginia and bad for the USA. And then he called him a backstabber.
And the backstabbing is alluding to the fact he didn't endorse him.
Well, here's the thing about Trump. He'll say one thing today and another thing next week, and he'll not bat an eye, and they're totally inconsistent. He says about Nikki Haley, who ran against him, she's a fine person and will have a place in my administration.
That was after she backed out of the race.
He said that last week.
Yes, but he didn't say that before when they were competing against each other.
No, she was bird brain.
Right. Yes. When he was.
That's what I'm saying. He'll call somebody a bird brain, and then next week he says, "Hey, she's a great person."
He does that from a political strategy to get rid of someone
because he doesn't mean it. He's
right.
disingenuous.
Yes.
Okay. I'm voting for him 7 times in November.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand.
That's right.
Don't misunderstand me.
All 7.
I know what's at stake.
Yeah.
In this election.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to find multiple ways to vote for Trump.
Yes, I like
November. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't vote for Trump.
Hey, FBI's
going to
come to your house.
Huh?
We're actually,
if the FBI comes to my house, I will show them how you can do this.
As a ministry, of course, we're not telling people who to vote for at all.
No, I'm saying me personally.
You personally, right?
Okay, 5 times. All right. So the point is, some people. I understand. I'm not trying to. I understand what's at stake in November.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just saying somebody needs to tell Trump when he's doing stupid stuff.
But the one thing I'll say about this is that it would be more. I know this is you can laugh about this, but it would be better if in these cases, and this has been going on. This is not the first time he's done this. He's been doing this for years.
You mean try to take out somebody who criticized him or something?
Or yes. So that's not been the first time. What I would say was for him, I would say, look, President Trump, all you have to do is support the person you're supporting. Cause I don't have a problem.
Well, you know what he'd say to you?
Yeah, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
He would say, you need to.
Well, no, I would have been fired.
You need to cry and call me sir.
No, I would have fired. I would have been fired for giving him any criticism.
I do want to just say, let me just.
I'm saying Bob Good. My point is Bob Good is not what Donald Trump calls him. Bob Good is a wonderful United States House of Representatives member and deserves kudos from conservatives not to be called bad for Virginia. That's what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do want to thank former President Trump for bringing bird brain back into the lexicon. Okay, now I thought it was wrong, especially to call a woman bird brain. That was very insulting. I didn't like that. But in general, I like bird brain. I used to use it all the time. Seriously, growing up, I'd call people, "You're a bird brain," and I had completely forgotten.
It went away
about
till Trump went after Haley.
I completely forgot about it. And now when I'm out driving and someone pulls out right in front of me and then goes slow, I say, "You bird brain, step on it." So he brought it back. I've brought it back, and I did make the mistake of calling my wife a bird brain the other day, and that didn't go over too well.
Which is why
I'm just kidding.
That's why Ed's been sleeping in his office the last couple of nights.
I'm just kidding, folks. I have never called my wife.
Anyway, next topic, Fred.
All right. You may have read some stories in recent days. President Biden recently gave an interview to Time magazine. I've read some of that article. It's fairly long. I would say to you it's one of those articles that the reporter wants to tell you that Joe Biden is the greatest thing since vanilla ice cream, and they probably talk about what favorite ice cream.
That had racial overtones, Fred.
Yeah.
I think
Vanilla?
we need to revise that to be more inclusive.
I'm a
chocolate swirl.
I'm a fan, yes. Chocolate swirl.
Something more, huh?
Yes.
Or you just avoid the racial element.
Yeah.
Just go, like in my case, mint chocolate chip.
Yeah.
There you go. In that interview, he is asked about, obviously, what's going on in Israel right now, the war against Hamas. And it was suggested to him in the interview that some people think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is extending this war for political purposes. In other words, not just to eliminate Hamas, which is what Netanyahu has stated, but that because of Netanyahu's political problems at home, he is trying to please the Israeli people and is extending the war unnecessarily. Here's what Biden had to say to that. He says, there's every reason to draw that conclusion, end quote. Well, that doesn't sit well with people like Jim Henson, who is the chief editor of the Middle East Forum. This is what he had to say about that. Cut number 5.
It was an obscene thing to say about the leader of a U.S. ally. I mean, the Biden administration has the mistaken notion that somehow Israel is the problem, the Palestinians are the victims, and Iran is the solution. And that's just madness. They are the ones who have caused these problems. They should have backed Israel's play from the beginning. Hamas needs to be removed as any type of a factor if there is ever going to be peace in Gaza of any kind.
Well,
who was that?
This was Jim Henson, chief editor of the Middle East Forum.
That was well said.
It's well said. Well, but that's another problem that I think people are considering and when they're looking at this election and Joe Biden, because a lot of people in this country are believing that the support from this country, it was good initially. I was very pleased with what I saw back on October 7th and 8th and 9th in those early days. But since then, because I think of pressure that Biden is facing from within his own party coming up to this election, that he has now wavered, and he's willing to be openly critical of Netanyahu on this. Listen, Netanyahu has stated Hamas must be eliminated. Hamas is a cancer. And if you're diagnosed with cancer, the last doctor you would go to is a doctor who would say, hey, we're going to kill some of the cancer cells, but we want to leave some in place.
Right.
And we hope they don't cause damage. Netanyahu says no. And there's some kind of, we're told, some kind of appeal for a settlement right now. But you know what? And it would involve Israel giving up all kinds of terrorists who they have in jail right now. They say they would release all the hostages, but Hamas has not responded to that proposal yet. So, again, Joe Biden turning on, as Mr. Hansen says, our chief ally in the Middle East.
I'll tell you something else. I know that's the music. We have a break coming up. If Israel is not allowed to finish off Hamas, you got Hezbollah up in Lebanon. They're watching how this plays out too.
Yes.
So. All right. Thank you, Fred.
All right.
We going to take a short time out right here, and then we shall return. Steve Paisley, Jordahl will be joining the panel when we get back from our break. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
There's a lot happening around us. That's why Christians need to stand strong on family values and morality. Hi, I'm Ray Rooney, editor of The Stand, a blog from the American Family Association. The Stand has timely, carefully written articles on relevant cultural issues that you can quickly forward to others. Visit afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Republicans are planning to crack down on the Justice Department following former President Trump's conviction in Manhattan.
A group of GOP senators are vowing to vote against all of President Biden's judicial nominees and any bill that increases non-security related funding or funds, quote, partisan lawfare.
People have been astounded with the way the federal government has been weaponized against Donald Trump.
Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee tells Fox News Radio the list of Republicans involved has grown from 8 to about 11 or 12. House Speaker Mike Johnson this week revealed a three-pronged strategy for cracking down on the Justice Department, and while there aren't many specifics, the Speaker says it will include oversight, legislation, and funding. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
President Biden signed an executive order aimed at temporarily limiting the entry of non-residents crossing the southern border. Florida Senator Marco Rubio says the president has only himself to blame for the border crisis.
This crisis, this mass invasion, this mass migration crisis has a start date, and that start date lines up perfectly with the close to 100 executive orders that he issued repealing all of the Trump immigration policies.
President Biden is in France to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. This, as a report cites Washington insiders raising new concerns about his cognitive decline being on display in private meetings. Peter Ducey has more from Paris.
Despite that Wall Street Journal item that they say sources information from 45 different people detailing what these folks are saying is basically questions about President Biden's acuity, here in Paris today, President Biden is not doing anything, even though we were told on the Air Force One trip over here that this trip was going to be action-packed. That Wall Street Journal item the White House is taking issue with includes a story from Speaker Mike Johnson, who recalls a recent meeting with Biden about canceling liquid natural gas permits for Europe for climate reasons. Johnson was dismayed that Biden appeared to have forgotten details of his own policies, they said.
A young man's online persona as a cyber terrorist, for the fun of it, lands him in federal prison.
21-year-old Ashton Connor Garcia taunted the FBI and police that he couldn't be caught, hiding under multiple virtual private networks. But the U.S. attorney writes he treated swatting like a form of entertainment where he was the star performer, set up internet chat rooms, and invited people to come watch his swatting calls like a premier sporting event several times a week, targeting dozens of people in the U.S. and Canada from his Bremerton, Washington home. With a chat group focused on doxing, swatting, and extortion, saying extortion is fun. The fun stopped with an anonymous tip on his Discord channel. Garcia pleaded guilty to threats and extortion, sentenced to 3 years in a federal lockup. Therese Crowley, Fox News.
The culture seems to be falling apart, and Christians have a choice: hope for the best or fight as a godly influence.
God's design for sexuality is being distorted, and proponents of the confusion are targeting children. The government is being weaponized against Christians and their religious freedom. The sitting president and his Department of Justice have attacked and want to jail his only political opponent. Speaking on Washington Watch with Tony Perkins on AFR, Southern Seminary President Al Mohler says these are unprecedented times.
We're not just looking at a presidential election as if you could say that. We're looking at tectonic shifts in the entire culture and, frankly, on the global picture. And so I think Christians need to be very concerned about discerning how the Lord would have us to act as American citizens.
Perkins agrees it's time to engage.
This is not a time to back up or to, go into a cave and hide. That means we need to be involved, voting and supporting candidates, becoming candidates. I mean, this is a time all hands on deck.
Mohler says there are prominent evangelical voices who say getting involved in politics is beneath a Christian. who needs to cast his gaze heavenward.
There's no excuse to just withdraw from the political process. It's a mess.
Right.
The answer to that is not to withdraw, but to help clean it up.
He's exhorting the church to lead the way, not bury its head in the sand.
There are many pastors whose silence on these issues is frankly a form of ministerial malpractice.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Transgenderism, critical race theory, and evolution. Is your child or grandchild ready to face these and other issues on campus? Hi, I'm Kirby Anderson with Probe Ministries and Point of View. You know, many Christians leave the church after they graduate, but they don't have to graduate from God. That's why we have the Mind Games Camp this year, June 16 to 22nd, a week of presentations, role play, as well as fun at camp. Sign up today at probe.org and help them meet these challenges to their faith.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. Let me get my mic up there. Hey.
Got the Paisley going on today?
I do have Paisley going on today. Yep. Got kind of patriotic Paisley.
Yeah. Listen, real quick, speaking of patriotic, we have a few seats remaining on our September Spiritual Heritage Tour of Washington, D.C. and the home of George Washington, Mount Vernon. So that's a Wednesday night through a Saturday night tour in September. I don't have the dates right here in front of me, but you can look them up. The itinerary, the cost, everything. If you want to join us in September, we'd love to have you. It'll be listeners like yourself from around the country joining us in Washington for this special tour. Stephen McDowell of the Providence Foundation, who is a historian and author of America's Providential History, will be talking and answering questions all along the way. So it won't just be, hey, look at that, isn't that nice? Look at that. You'll get the history, the who, what, when, and where of everything behind it. So if that interests you, all you need to do is go to the website Spiritual Heritage Tours with an S.com. Spiritual Heritage Tours with an S.com. That's September, like in 3 months from now. All right, Wesley, you had your first, hosted your first Men of Honor event here in Tupelo last night. I know some people are repeating that program around the country, but what was that about? You wanted to give an update?
I just want to give an update. Over the last month or so, we have invited our listening audience, if they were within 20 or 30 minutes, or even if they wanted to drive a little further, to come bring their son, their grandson, or somebody in their community that would benefit from AFA's Men of Honor program. We've been inviting them over the last couple months, and that program began last night. It's every Tuesday through the month of June and the first Tuesday in July. And last night we had 30 boys. They came. We got to play games outside, shoot basketball. We ate pizza. Then we came inside and we went over we had speakers on gun safety. And then we also concluded with our Bible study where we presented the gospel and the importance of forgiveness. And we had great help from our staff here at AFA, and just wanted to report back on a local project that we're doing to help disciple young men called Men of Honor. Last night was the first one. It was full. Everything went exceptionally smooth, and it was just a wonderful time. I've sent a couple pictures to our producer, Brent Creeley. We've gotten permission by the parents when they registered their children that we could share some pictures to give encouragement. So hopefully Brent will be able to get those
on
up
our Today's Issues Facebook page.
Yeah.
Today's Issues Facebook page. Let me ask you this. So if people want to download the curriculum for the Men of Honor program, how can they do that?
Yes.
And you wrote that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I did. I'm fixing to say I hadn't written much of anything, but I wrote that. Yeah. Right. I did write that, and then we put it together in a curriculum. Is
it a how-to?
It's a how-to, okay. And it's extremely detailed. It is extremely detailed from day one all the way to from week 1 all the way to week 8. And in between all that, it says detailed or as open for modifications if you can. I've mentioned if you can't do all 8, well, you could pick 4. Like if you're trying to do it over a winter break. So you can there's room for modification to fit your community and what you can do, but it's there. So you can go to resource.afa.net, it's resources with an S, resources.afa.net, and there at the top, there's a rotating banner that says Men of Honor curriculum. You can click on it and you can download it completely for free. I'm aware personally because they have contacted me asking a handful of questions of at least a dozen communities and or churches that are doing the Men of Honor curriculum this summer, starting when we started. So that's good.
It's a once-a-week meeting.
Once a week, yep. So as busy as you can be, as busy as people are, you're talking about 8 days.
Take the Men of Honor website, menofhonor.com. Who owns that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
You need to steal it from them.
Or buy it.
No, in an honorable way.
Sure.
Yes. I was going to mention when you said your first one, that's your first one of this year.
Correct.
You've been doing this for what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, good clarification. So this is our 5th annual Men of Honor. It's our 2nd one hosted on our new campus here in Tupelo. We're obviously mentioned about our new campus. We're excited about it. Our new campus, thanks to those that obviously built it, we can host events like this locally. So we've got our national ministry, we got our radio network, and a lot of things we do nationally, but we also do things locally too here as well.
Steve Jordahl, bring forth unto us.
Well, let me just, before we do that, I just want to say, Wesley, I like what you're doing, and you and I are going to get together after the show so I can give you my home address so that when you guys need to do yard work, they need someplace to practice. So,
that's it. Yeah, we do that.
Come on over.
Yeah,
come on over.
Get your yard work bad.
We actually,
boys.
real quick, we did that last year. We did yard maintenance, and we gave all the boys a couple pieces of equipment, and we let them practice. We looked up, though, and everybody practiced in their own area at AFA in the front yard.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine if 4, 5, 6 lawnmowers are going in different directions, what it looked like. Now, they were just practicing, but the next day, our maintenance guy, Bo, he had to get out there and mow the whole thing and kind of clean it up. But it was kind of funny you say that.
All right. Hey, let's take a trip, if we can, gentlemen, out to California, because we've got a couple things over there that we would
Your home state.
My home state. I'm so proud.
You had to remind them of that.
Oh, my gosh.
There are a lot of wonderful people.
It's the politics.
And great things. Yeah, we're talking about the politics of California.
Yeah, in fact, was it yesterday we heard from that state senator, the Democrat, the progressive Democrat, that was starting to say really good things about what her priorities are. But now we've got what's the Daily Mail refers to as a beloved Mexican restaurant chain. It's called Rubio's Coastal Grill, and apparently they are the ones that came up with fish tacos, which are kind of popular there. And the $20 an hour minimum wage that California has instituted and mandated has resulted in the closure of 48, about a third, not quite half of their California stores are closing because they can't afford to have employees pay them $20 an hour. They'd have to put that back, pass that on to the customer.
Right.
People just aren't going to pay that much for food
Fish
already.
Tacos,
Fish tacos are already expensive because food's going up.
Yeah, you reach your limit with people, and I know California, the average income is probably more than most states in America, but still people can't afford. You have to pay fast food, so to speak, or restaurant employees, you have to pay a minimum wage of $20 an hour. Then, as you say, they're just going to pass that on to the customer. Well, the customer, you better have some really good fish tacos because the customers are going to pay. But you reach the point where they're not. Right. They're not going to pay a certain amount of money for your product, and that's what's happened, unfortunately, with this. You said 40 of their stores are closing.
48.
48.
Well,
go ahead. That makes sense.
I was going to say the owner or manager of a restaurant has to figure into its budget, for want of a better word, all of its expenses. And they know how many hours they need, how many workers to work, and how much the payroll is going to be at $20 an hour. And they are figuring that they can't stay in business. And listen, fish tacos, Now I know there are good Mexican restaurants that are more kind of sit down, and you pay a little bit more for those kind. But for the most part, if your main food that you're known for is fish tacos, that's a fast food.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to want to go at lunchtime and drop $25 for fish tacos.
So it used to be that minimum wage, back when the three of us, Wesley, you weren't probably included in this, but when the three of us first started working our work careers, it used to be the minimum wage was meant for kids who want to get it going and start in the career. They want to start working. They want to start making gas money. It was never meant to support families.
I think it was $3.50.
It was.
Hour
It was.
I think it was under $2 when I started.
I just, but it was never meant. Today, because of the economy, we have people there. We have breadwinners that are starting to get and reduced to working at restaurants where they don't need just gas money. They need food money. They need clothing money. They need all the stuff that you got to have to live a life. And it just was, minimum wage was never meant for that. And the economy has just gone so south.
It was $2 an hour in 1974 when I started working.
Okay.
$2 an hour.
I don't think I ever made under $3. I remember when I was in college, this would have been 1980, 81 or so. I remember getting a job with a construction company. They built shopping centers. This is major industrial construction. And I was just a laborer. I would go and I would shovel out ditches and clean trenches and sweep and that kind of stuff. But they offered me $10 an hour, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, couldn't imagine making $10 an hour.
Yeah. So you did what? What did you do?
I'm kind of ashamed to admit this. My first job I got when I was 14 years old at a Friendly's ice cream parlor in Nashua, New Hampshire. And I got fired after about 2 weeks.
You're probably eating up the profit.
No, I wasn't. No, here was the thing. Believe me, I had worked. I had dug ditches in the yard. We did a lot of yard work for my dad. But I had never been around a cash register. I could not figure out. They said, you're putting too much ice cream into the sundaes and on the cones, because I was doing it like I like it.
Right?
And then I could not figure out. I just panicked. When people would hand me money, I panicked and had a hard time. So they just said, this is not working out. The next summer, I killed it at First National Grocery Store. I was the fastest bagger they ever saw.
There you go.
Sacking groceries, man. I was
so
legendary.
The human growth you had there in that year.
Yeah.
Was looking back on your life was a phenomenal year.
It's
between the ice cream store,
that's right,
and the grocery store. You went from panicked around the cash register to killing it by sacking groceries. My dad. Okay, this is to show you the generations with the way my dad had. I came home. I said I lost my job. He said, you lost your job scooping ice cream.
Right.
He said, what's wrong with you?
So he didn't call the place asking
No.
trying to
He
cover
looked at
for
me. He said, what are you, some kind of bum? You can't scoop ice cream?
Thanks, Dad, for the encouragement.
I got fired from a job. I lost a job. It was I was working first year of seminary in Portland, Oregon, and I got a job at UPS. I'd go in at like 1 o'clock in the morning and work until 6, and then go take some classes. But there was a conveyor belt that brought these boxes, and they brought them down on this big, huge shelf, and there's all these boxes. And you had to pick them up, look at the address, and sort them into bins by the address. And so you had to know, and this wasn't just like
that's hard work.
And it wasn't just like First Street goes in this box. It was like from 1312 First Street to 2570 8th Street goes in this box, 2571 8th Street. I mean, it was just like random.
Yeah.
And my eyesight is not that good to begin with. And I remember struggling, and I remember seeing them. They stand down there with a stopwatch, timing how many. There's no way. There's no way. I remember when they would ask me to do things outside of sorting, I would always run around with the, hustle, and I was a great employee, but I just couldn't get that down. They were very sorry, but
so that's what's wrong with the mail service.
After part ways,
a bunch of Steves. Bunch of Steves
with the mail service. You said,
I didn't want to just say the postal service because
right.
it was
UPS. We have we had a lot of people who work for the Postal Service who are fine people and hard workers. And
trillions of pieces of mail.
Okay, when you get through, I'm going to tell you the problems with it.
Yeah, but there are problems, and a lot of these folks know it too.
Oh yeah, they do.
Okay, so while we're on the hardest job,
okay,
I don't know if this tops that. That's pretty. And now that's scooping ice cream. That can wear you out, right, Ed?
Apparently.
I told you, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, I know. I would have. Do you have a picture of you in your uniform from that?
No.
Okay, I would blackmail you.
Well, listen, but this is talking about the change in culture. Nobody took pictures of themselves in a uniform.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah,
so
if I have to watch it, one more person taking a selfie.
Right. Oh my gracious!
Now I take about 6 selfies a year
with your family or someone else or your wife.
These 15-year-old girls are taking 20 in 2 minutes. It's
Yeah.
I want to go take the phone away. But
go ahead. So
anyway, so the hardest. I'm thinking back because I had several jobs, but the physical labor. One time I worked for a company that made metal chairs.
Oh, and stacked them and all that.
Metal chairs like the old-fashioned ones.
The guys they use with WWE to smack each other in the back. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? I don't even know if they make them anymore, but metal chairs.
Sure,
like
they do.
Okay.
Folding chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, folding chairs. And so it was a summer I was in college, and my father-in-law had got me the job because he had a friend at the plant.
Yeah.
So I kind of like
you're under pressure already.
Yeah. But I go there like day one, and they put me over there on the. I was not familiar with working a line.
No, I know.
I didn't know anything about that.
When you're brand new to that kind of work.
But I was a healthy young buck.
Right.
And they put me over there, and so they box up the chairs 4 or 5 in a box to ship. And then you had hot glue.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to hot glue the box.
Yeah.
Hot glue can take your skin off.
Yes.
Okay.
You
better
make your day miserable.
You better be careful with the hot glue. But anyway, I think they had somebody else that would do the hot glue and the pack. But then you had to physically, at least I was one of the ones, physically take the box and put it on a pallet.
Yeah.
And stack them up.
Right.
And you didn't do that. I mean, you couldn't do that all day, every day.
Right.
But I did that a lot. But that was like, I got home. I told my mom first day, I said, I feel like a mule. Like a whipped mule.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd never done anything physically. I was like, I don't know what I was, 18, 19 years old. But I can't. I want to quit. But I can't quit.
Because it's.
No, and that was only for the summer.
Right.
But I can't quit because my future father-in-law got me the job on personal favor.
Yeah, you can't
from a friend. And so
you just suck it up.
No, you suck it up. I couldn't dare go quit, and then my future father-in-law.
This boy won't work.
No, I couldn't do that. So I did it.
Things we do for love.
But that's hey, those kind of things build character.
Yes,
sometimes.
it does.
But I was counting down the days till college started back. Where I didn't have to.
All I can say is. The amount of times like my dad would insult me over things like that made the rest of my life a piece of cake.
By comparison.
What's wrong with you, moron?
Right.
You're scooping ice cream. How hard can that be? All right.
All right, Wesley, what was your hardest physical labor job?
Hardest physical labor. Now I was born. Now remember, I started working in the 20s.
Here at the ministry.
Well, yeah, in the 21st century too.
Yeah, we had roboted a lot of stuff.
Yes, right. This was can you drive? Yes,
bend your back.
Yeah, so
break your back work.
My hardest work was your wife, my mom.
Yeah, that was good.
Asking me, or telling me.
Yeah,
because I live
at
the
she
house.
Tells.
Because I lived there and y'all were covering my food and my expenses that I was going to spend the next 2 weeks in summer, which felt like 6 months.
Yeah,
toting 8, 10, 12-pound rocks, which were delivered in a dump truck and a barrel that we were going to replace those with our mulch. So we were going to get rid of mulch. We weren't going to do mulch. We were going to do rocks. Rocks obviously can last longer than mulch, blah, blah, blah. So spent 2 months in June. That was also with all my football workouts and stuff. But that's a job that I was asked to do, obviously not on a payroll or anything like that, but it was a job I was asked to do that I will never forget.
Yeah.
Never forget.
Yep.
So.
All right, you see these hot glue scars I got here, Ed? They remain today. All right, go ahead, Steve.
We have about 4 or 5 minutes, so I'm gonna. You need to remind me, Ed, that we need to stop about 2 minutes to do something we promised our listeners we'd do a couple of days ago.
Pointing your finger at him like.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's it.
okay. Back to California. There's a bill in the assembly there that would mandate the University of California system, UCLA, UC Davis, UC, all those UCs, to begin hiring illegal immigrants for taxpayer-funded jobs. They are saying that they prioritize illegal immigrants for jobs.
Listen, it's one of those things where, if you want to live in that, I know a lot of people leaving California.
Right.
I mean, aren't they
Have already left and
they-
are continuing to leave. Yeah.
The politics of California has just gotten so far crazy left, quote progressive. It's just driving a lot of businesses and individuals out of their state. Anyway, next we got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Let's do this.
All right.
President Trump fully expects to win in 2024. So, but if he doesn't, and if he does, and then after his second term, he has a future. He wants to, I hear, narrate history books. And so he's put his audition tape in. This is him narrating different battles in American history, just so he wants to sell himself as a good narrator, book on tape guy. So this is cut 8. You're going to hear about 4 different historical events that he's narrating, and I'll talk about them. I'll list each one right before they do. So the first one he's talking about is D-Day.
The Americans, they crossed the water and landed on the beaches. The Brits were nowhere to be seen. Very sad what's happened to the British people, very sad. Hitler, he was asleep. He'd fallen out of favor, and you ever noticed that? Not in favor anymore. Tom Hanks, he was there. Good friend of mine, Mr. Hanks.
The Battle of the Alamo.
Remember the Alamo. Who can ever forget the Alamo? You know who forgot the Alamo? Joe Biden. Sleepy Joe. He can't remember the Alamo. He can't even remember his name. Forgetful Joe.
The Battle for Hoth.
The rebels were hiding out there on Hoth. Very cold, very, very cold on Hoth. I'm telling you, Mar-a-Lago is much warmer. It's in the tropics. You don't have to cut open a tauntaun there.
And Helm's Deep from Lord of the
This
Rings.
fellow, Bob Helm, I think he was called, built a great, big, beautiful wall. He made Sauron pay for it. The orcs tried to get through it with a big bomb thing. But Theoden was there. Great man. We all remember him, right? He said, "So it begins, me boys. So it begins." Gandalf showed up late, of course. Slept in that day. Groggy Gandalf, we call him.
Of course,
Who did that? Who did that?
I don't know.
That's a fellow who imitates Trump, right?
I don't think it's Sean Farash. He's the guy, the best guy. It
the
might
one
be AI.
Hoth,
Sure.
So if you're a Star Wars fan, the third original Star Wars movie, the second, Empire Strikes Back, the opening sequence takes place on the ice planet of Hoth.
Yeah.
And
I got you.
Those Helm's Deep, those are really
Who's the
fun.
guy that does Trump that's so funny and so?
His name is Sean Farash. I bring him in occasionally. He's very good at
Oh
what he does.
gosh, that guy.
I did want to make mention of one additional story.
Yes.
And that is, if you think your day's going badly or you're not looking forward to a good summer, from the Daily Mail, flying venomous spiders the size of a human hand are set to invade New York. This is not a joke as compared to the last little story here. Giant black and yellow spiders the size of a human hand set to arrive in northeastern U.S. states this summer, including New Jersey and New York. They're called Joro spiders. They're an invasive species that originated in China.
I support
there you go.
I support shutting everything down. Quarantining everyone that's healthy.
Right. Everybody get a mask. Mask up there for the flying spiders.
From China.
Yes.
People are wondering whether they escaped from a lab.
I got to tell you, though, a heavy metal band used the name venomous flying spiders from China.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes.
They could open for Metallica.
Yes.
I think if
lead singer is Jerome.
Metallica's still around. Still a thing?
I don't know.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
And my father, your great-grandfather,